We are back from Iceland. It was an amazing trip. We recommend it to anyone who's interested. Definitely worth it. It lived up to all of the hype. We did a lot of research before going to Iceland, and we found YouTube to be a really good resource, so we thought, we would pay back by sharing some of our experiences with you. We were in Iceland from the 10th of June. We stayed for 9 days. While we were there, the weather was not the best. We had 2-3 days of bright sunshine. Most of the other days it
wasn't raining heavily,
but it was a constant drizzle, and
always overcast.
Yeah, and there were some days where it was really, really windy and cold. I think perhaps one of our coldest days there was about 3 degrees Celsius, but more often than not it was over 10
just
degrees.
Over 10, yeah.
Which was pretty manageable. But sometimes, the wind can make a difference in how manageable it was. So if you are going in June, our recommendation would be make sure that you have your waterproof gear, a waterproof jacket, waterproof pants, shoes, and the one thing that we forgot, waterproof gloves. But it was definitely a trip of a lifetime, and we hope that if you do go to Iceland that you enjoy it as much as we did. Supermarket shopping in Iceland. If you've done any research at all, you've heard Iceland is expensive, and we can confirm Iceland is expensive. We would say to anyone, whatever you can bring with you, bring it. But I don't think there's any way to avoid going in the supermarket. Our first supermarket was Kronan. We had wanted to try Bonus first because that is the one that people tend to recommend, but we weren't able to get there first. We actually preferred Kronan to Bonus. The selection was a bit better in our experience, and the prices were not significantly different for the items that we had to purchase.
Yeah, they were the same for items that we bought in Bonus and in Kronan.
Yeah. So from that perspective, we would recommend Kronan, but of course feel free to check it out on your own. As we said before, the prices were quite steep. What we found to be pretty affordable was junk food, potato chips, chocolate, that kind of thing. Thankfully we realized that towards the end of the trip, so we didn't indulge too much. We had decided beforehand that we didn't want to have to do too much cooking on the trip, so we just figured the best thing would be to look for items that we could just eat, that were ready to eat. So we bought a lot of the Icelandic yogurt, Skyr.
Skyr was really good.
Skyr was good, and we found that it was actually quite filling, so we had that for breakfast, and we were pretty good until lunch. We also purchased pre-sliced cheese, pre-sliced ham, crackers, that kind of thing. Perhaps not the most gourmet meals, but to be honest, you are so caught up in the experience of Iceland, you don't even think about food. We did buy some ramen for those evenings where we could go outside. Yeah, and the other thing we wanted to mention is we did do laundry on the trip, and bearing that in mind, we had bought some laundry detergent in the supermarket. Don't do that, guys. We really just needed a cap full of laundry detergent. If you can, put it in a small bottle, pack it, bring it, because we thought we could find small
packets.
Yeah, laundry detergent, and the smallest bottle we could find was a 1 liter bottle. So of course at the end of the trip we had a lot of laundry detergent left.
And there was a guy who talked about the price of a USB cable. He paid $35 for a USB cable. I can confirm that as a fact. So anything that's not food that you need to bring it with you. Don't intend on buying anything over in Iceland. Another thing people were concerned about was cash cards. Now, Iceland is a part of the European Union, but they have their own currency and they don't use euros. So I would suggest changing whatever currency you have into ISK, their Icelandic krona currency at the airport. I would say
we were actually able to change our currency at Gatwick. We didn't have to do it at the Iceland airport.
Yeah. So most places, the majority of places, will take cards. The cards must be chip and pin. And you need to have these chip and pin cards too, especially if you are driving around and you need to go to like gas stations and stuff. Sometimes the gas stations can be closed, but the pumps are available. So you would put gas in, but you need to pay with a chip and pin card up front. There were a couple of campsites, 2 or 3 campsites, which did not take any card. So we had to pay, and you would have to pay with ISK. There was one campsite which took euros. So we took the opportunity to pay them with euros. There was one campsite as well that took coins for the washing machine, and you had to pay them ISK to get ISK coins back for the washing machine.
We wanted to talk a bit about Iceland Air. We used Iceland for both legs of our trip, arriving and leaving. Unfortunately, both legs were delayed. The coming into Iceland, we were delayed about an hour, hour and a half. When we left, there was a 3-hour delay. Now, we know that delays happen all the time when you travel, but what was a bit frustrating with Iceland Air is that they really did not let us know what was going on. You know, usually if there's a delay, you would get some sort of announcement or some sort of apology, explanation. Nothing. And that does affect your trip to some extent. When we got there, we arrived too late to do the supermarket shopping that we had wanted to do when we arrived, because we had booked a Blue Lagoon for a specific time, and we pretty much just had enough time to get to our appointment.
Yeah.
And then by the time we were finished, because it was a Sunday, the supermarket that we wanted to go to was closed, and we had to go to a gas station to purchase our initial provisions, and that was even more expensive than going to the supermarket.
Yeah.
And then obviously leaving, the next leg of our trip, we were taking a train, and we literally had just enough time to get the train.
Yep.
So I don't know if this is a trend with Iceland Air. Perhaps that's something you need to research on your own, but do know we did experience delays on both ends of our trip.
So something else we've heard about a lot was the sulphur or rotten egg smell in the water. We had began to doubt it a little bit, because the first 3 or 4 days there was no smell in the water, so we thought it was a bunch of BS. However, when we started to go around the east and then kind of head north, especially around Lake Mývatn, then it smelled of rotten eggs, like really bad. So like as soon as you turn on the pipe, it just came at you. It was really disconcerting, but we know that sulphur isn't in the water, it's just a smell.
And certainly the first day that we encountered the smell, it was very intense. The other days it seemed to be a little less so. I don't know if it's because we were getting used to it, or perhaps there are certain areas where the smell is just more intense than others. The first thing you notice, like when you come out of the shower and you've dried off and everything, your skin still has that lingering odor of the sulphur, which is perhaps not the best. And then like when you go to brush your teeth, as you go to rinse, and you're gonna put this thing in your mouth that does not smell very good. You have to really like talk yourself into doing it. The water tastes fine. There's nothing that tastes funny about the water. It is just the smell that stays with you.
So getting around Iceland. So our trip was predominantly driving around. So what I did is I went up with 2 forms of navigation. So I went with a Garmin map, and then I also went with Google Maps offline. But what I found was that the Google Maps was really, really, really good. Especially, and it worked offline. We did have internet with the camper van, but it didn't work all of the time. So it's good to have Google Maps in offline mode. And what I did was I divided Iceland in half, east and west, and downloaded 2 maps like that. Getting around with the Google Maps was very easy. In our research, we put in the places where we wanted to go, and we starred them inside of Google Maps, and it will sync with the phone. So when you take your phone out and you want to go somewhere, you start typing and it brings up all of your offline places and places you wanted to go. So it was really, really good. Some of the places were a little bit incorrect, but it took you to the general area, and you just use your common sense and figure it out from there. So it wasn't too bad. Another thing that surprised us, on the YouTube, people were talking about gravel roads, and again, 3 or 4 days into our trip, we didn't see any. So we thought, all right, well, Iceland upgraded the road system and everything is fine. Our trip started from, we were doing the ring road and we were doing it anti-clockwise. So when we were going along the south of Iceland, everything was fine. But by the time we started to go onto the east coast and then moving north, things just got very gravelly. And you had completely different types of gravel roads. You had gravel roads that were very hard and smooth, almost like clay, hard dirt, compacted dirt, and that was fine. Trying to do 80 kilometers on that was not a problem. Then you got loose gravel, and we were stuck behind actually a tractor who was preparing and smoothing out one of the gravel roads for the season. But some of the roads were very bad. Some were very windy, lots of hairpins, very few guardrails in places. So if you did have it off, I don't know. Yeah, and because two of the gravel roads, they expect you to travel 80 kilometers on most of them. So if you're trying to get somewhere and your GPS is telling you it'll take you an hour to get there, sometimes it may take a little bit longer, not because of traffic, but because trying to maintain 80 kilometers on some of these gravel roads might be asking a little bit too much of the vehicle and your nerves.